Captain Sam Turner sat in his command chair aboard the UHS Pioneer, watching the stars through the main view screen. The ship had been traveling for 3 months now, exploring the edge of human space. Sam was 45 years old and had spent most of his life among the stars. He loved the quiet moments like this when space seemed peaceful and full of possibilities. "Captain, we're picking up something strange," said Lieutenant Mike Johnson from his station. Mike was the ship's sensor operator, and he had good eyes for spotting things that didn't belong. Sam turned to look at him. "What kind of strange?" "5 ships, sir. They're big, much bigger than anything we've ever built. They just appeared out of nowhere, like they jumped right into our space." Sam felt his heart beat faster. The Pioneer was an exploration ship, not a warship. They had some weapons, but nothing serious. "Put them on screen." The view screen changed, and Sam saw something that made his blood run cold. 5 massive ships hung in space ahead of them. Each one was at least 3 times the size of the Pioneer. They were dark metal with strange curved designs that hurt to look at. Red lights pulsed along their sides like angry eyes. "Are they trying to talk to us?" Sam asked. "Yes, sir. They're sending a signal. It's in perfect English." Sam stood up. "Put it through." The screen flickered, and a face appeared that Sam would never forget. The creature had gray skin stretched tight over sharp bones. Its eyes were black and cold, like looking into empty space. When it spoke, its voice was flat and without feeling. "I am High Commander Vextar of the Zephyrian Empire. You will surrender your vessel immediately and prepare for subjugation. Your species will kneel before the Eternal Empire or face complete destruction." Sam took a deep breath. This was first contact with an alien race, something humans had dreamed about for centuries. But it wasn't going the way anyone had hoped. "I'm Captain Sam Turner of the United Human Systems. We come in peace. We'd like to establish friendly relations with your people." The alien's face didn't change. "There is no peace except through submission. There are no friendly relations except between master and slave. You will surrender now." "I'm sorry, but I can't do that," Sam said, trying to keep his voice steady. "We're explorers, not conquerors. Surely we can find some common ground." High Commander Vextar was quiet for a moment. Then something like surprise crossed his face. "You refuse?" "We're not refusing to talk. We're refusing to surrender. There's a difference. No species has ever refused the Empire's first offer. This is unexpected." The alien seemed to be thinking. "I will give you one more chance. Kneel before the might of the Zephyrian Empire. Accept your place as subjects. Your species will serve, and in serving, find purpose." Sam looked around his bridge. His crew of 23 men and women were all watching him. These were good people. Scientists, engineers, explorers. They had families back home, dreams for the future. They didn't deserve to be slaves. "The answer is still no," Sam said. "Humanity doesn't kneel." For the first time, the alien showed emotion. Its black eyes seemed to burn with anger. "Then you have chosen extinction. Your species' first contact with the Empire will also be your last. You will serve as an example to any others who might think to resist." The screen went dark. "Captain," Mike called out, his voice tight with fear. "They're charging weapons. All 5 ships." Sam knew they couldn't fight 5 ships that size. The Pioneer's weapons would barely scratch their hulls. But he also knew that running wasn't an option. If he ran, these aliens would follow the Pioneer's trail back to human space. They would find Earth, find the colonies, find everything humanity had built. "Send a message to Admiral Morrison," Sam ordered. "Tell him what happened here. Tell him about the Empire. Tell him they're coming." "Message sent, sir." "Good." Sam sat back down in his chair. "Now send one more message. Broadcast it on all frequencies so these Zephyrians can hear it too." "Sir?" "Tell them that Captain Sam Turner and the crew of the UHS Pioneer chose to stand rather than kneel. Tell them we died free." The weapons fire came a moment later. 5 massive energy beams struck the Pioneer from different angles. The little exploration ship didn't stand a chance. It broke apart in a flash of light that could be seen for thousands of miles. High Commander Vexitar watched the debris field where the human ship had been. In 10,000 years of conquest, no species had ever refused the Empire's first offer. Most begged for mercy. Some tried to bargain. A few attempted to run. But none had ever simply said no and meant it. "Tactical officer," he said. "How long to reach the humans' home systems?" Based on their ship's design and the energy signature of their engines, approximately 6 months, High Commander. Prepare the subjugation fleet. 500 ships should be sufficient to demonstrate the futility of resistance. We will give their species one final chance to surrender before we begin cleansing protocols. But as his ship turned toward human space, Vexitar couldn't shake the feeling that something had changed. The human captain's last words kept echoing in his mind. "We died free." What kind of species chose death over submission? What kind of beings would rather burn than bow? Soon, he would find out. Soon, the Empire would learn what humanity truly meant when they said they didn't kneel. And, across human space, Admiral Jake Morrison was already preparing to show them exactly what that choice would cost. The great throne room of Nexus Prime stretched for nearly a mile in every direction. Massive pillars made from the bones of dead worlds reached toward a ceiling lost in shadow. At the center, on a throne carved from a single black crystal, sat Supreme Overlord Kethavar. He had ruled the Zephyrian Empire for over 8,000 years, and in all that time, no species had ever surprised him, until today. High Commander Vexitar knelt before the throne, his head bowed low. Around him, the other members of the High Council waited in silence. The air was thick with tension. "Rise," Kethavar said, his voice echoing through the vast chamber. The Supreme Overlord was ancient even by Zephyrian standards. His skin was pale as moonlight, and his eyes held the cold wisdom of millennia. "Tell me about these humans." Vexitar stood slowly. "They are a young species, my lord. They have spread to only 12 star systems. Their technology is primitive. Chemical rockets, kinetic weapons, simple energy shields. Nothing we haven't seen 1,000 times before. And yet they refuse to surrender," said war tactician Zelnoth from her place at the council table. She was younger than the others, with sharp features and calculating eyes. "That has never happened before." "It was an aberration," Vexitar replied quickly. "One foolish captain who didn't understand the power of the Empire. When they see our full fleet, they will surrender like all the others." Intelligence gatherer Mordun shifted in his seat. He was thin and pale, with eyes that seemed to see everything. "I have been studying the transmission from their destroyed ship. This Captain Turner knew he was going to die. He accepted it. More than that, he chose it rather than submit." "One madman," Vexitar said. "Every species has them." "Perhaps," Kethavar said slowly. "But tell me, Vexitar, in your 8 centuries of conquest, how many species have you encountered that chose death over submission?" Vexitar was quiet for a moment. "None, my lord." "Exactly." The Supreme Overlord leaned forward in his throne. "The Korthani begged for mercy when we found them. The Velthrians offered us their entire treasury. The Makari tried to hide in the depths of their ocean world, but none chose to die rather than kneel. This bears investigation." Zelnoth pulled up a holographic display showing the human star systems. Their worlds are scattered and poorly defended. Their largest fleet has, perhaps 50 ships. We have conquered civilizations 1,000 times their size. Numbers mean nothing if they are willing to die for their freedom, Mordun said quietly. A desperate enemy is often more dangerous than a strong one. "You speak nonsense," Vexitar snapped. "Desperation without power is just suicide. We have the finest ships in the galaxy, weapons that can crack planets, warriors bred for conquest. What can a handful of primitives do against the might of the Empire?" Kethavar raised his hand for silence. "You may be right, Vexitar, but I have ruled this empire for 8 millennia by never underestimating my enemies. We will proceed, but with caution." "What are your orders, my lord?" Zelnoth asked. "Assemble a subjugation fleet. 500 ships should be more than sufficient." Kethvar stood from his throne, his robes flowing around him like liquid shadow. But I want full intelligence reports on human military capabilities. Study their tactics, their weapons, their psychology. Leave nothing to chance. My lord, Vextar said, surely such preparations are unnecessary. They are primitives with crude weapons. Perhaps. But primitives who choose death over slavery may fight differently than civilized species who value their lives above their freedom. The Supreme Overlord walked to the great window that looked out over the Empire's capital city. Millions of beings from hundreds of conquered worlds moved through the streets below, all serving the Empire in perfect order. Tell me, Mordoun, what do we know of human history? The intelligence gatherer consulted his datapad. They are a violent species, my lord. Their history is filled with wars. They fight amongst themselves constantly, but they also have a disturbing tendency to unite when faced with outside threats. Disturbing how? They have a concept they call total war. When truly threatened, they mobilize their entire civilization for conflict. Every citizen becomes a soldier. Every factory becomes a weapons plant. They do not fight just to win territory or resources. They fight to completely destroy their enemies. Zelnoth frowned. That seems inefficient. What is the point of conquest if you destroy what you seek to control? That is exactly what makes them dangerous, Morden replied. They do not think, like us. When we conquer, we seek to rule. When they fight, they seek to eliminate the threat entirely. Vextar laughed. You make them sound like monsters. They are a backward species with small ships and weak weapons. I could crush their entire fleet with a single dreadnought. And yet their captain looked you in the eye and told you no, Kethvar said softly. He knew he would die. He knew his ship would be destroyed, but he said no anyway. Why? The High Council was silent for a long moment. I believe, Morden said slowly, that they value something more than their own lives. What could be more valuable than life? Zelnoth asked. Freedom, the Supreme Overlord said. They value their freedom more than their lives, and that makes them very dangerous indeed. He turned from the window to face his council. Prepare the fleet, but do not underestimate these humans. They may be primitive, but they have something we have not faced in 10,000 years of conquest. What is that, my lord? Vextar asked. Hope, Kethvar replied. They believe they can win, and that belief may make them capable of things that should be impossible. The council began to disperse, each member going to prepare for the coming war, but as they left, none of them truly understood what they were about to face. How could they? In 10,000 years of conquest, they had never encountered a species that fought not just for victory, but for the very right to remain free. Admiral Jake Morrison stood in the war room aboard the UHS Defiance, staring at the holographic display that showed all of human space. Red dots marked their 12 colonies, connected by thin lines that represented shipping routes. It looked so small compared to what they now faced. The message from Captain Turner came through clearly, said General Katie Sullivan, her hands clasped behind her back. Katie was the head of all human military forces, a woman who had spent 30 years preparing for wars that never came. Now the biggest war in human history was heading straight for them. 5 ships destroyed the Pioneer without breaking a sweat, and they're sending 500 more. 500, repeated Dr. Ben Carter, shaking his head. Ben ran the weapons research lab on Mars, and he looked tired. Our entire fleet has maybe 200 ships, and half of those are cargo vessels with guns bolted on. Admiral Morrison turned from the display. He was 52 years old with gray hair and scars from a dozen smaller conflicts. Then we better make every ship count. What do we have to work with? Captain Ryan Mitchell stepped forward. Ryan was young for his rank, only 35, but he had led Special Forces missions across human space. I've been talking to the civilian captains, mining ships, cargo haulers, passenger liners. They're all volunteering to fight. Civilian ships won't last 5 minutes against military weapons, General Sullivan said. Maybe not in a straight fight, Ryan replied, but we're not going to fight fair. We can't afford to. Chief Engineer Maria Santos pulled up new designs on her datapad. Maria had spent her whole career building things, and now she was learning to build weapons. I've been working on modifications. We can turn a cargo ship into a bomb, load it with fusion charges, send it on autopilot toward their big ships. One good hit might take down their shields. Suicide runs, Dr. Carter said quietly. We're talking about suicide runs. No, Admiral Morrison said firmly. We're talking about unmanned ships. Nobody dies unless they choose to. Some will choose to, General Sullivan said. You know they will. When it comes down to it, some of our people will choose to ram their ships into the enemy, rather than let them reach Earth. Morrison nodded slowly. He knew she was right. Humans had a long history of desperate sacrifices when their backs were against the wall. What about weapons? He asked Dr. Carter. I've been studying the sensor readings from the Pioneers' last fight. Their ships have powerful shields, but they seem designed to stop energy weapons. I think kinetic weapons might work better. Old-fashioned bullets and missiles. We have plenty of those, Captain Mitchell said with a grim smile. Every mining ship in the system has explosive charges for breaking up asteroids. Every construction ship has industrial cutters that could slice through hull plating. Maria Santos nodded. I can modify almost anything to be a weapon. The question is whether we'll have time to do it all. How long do we have? Morrison asked. 6 months, General Sullivan replied. Maybe less if they push their engines hard. Then we better get started. Morrison turned back to the display. Katie, I want every military ship refitted with the new kinetic weapons. Ryan, start training civilian crews in combat tactics. Ben, work with Maria on turning every ship in our fleet into a potential weapon. And I want volunteers for the most dangerous missions. What kind of missions? Ryan asked. The kind where we hit them before they reach our worlds. The kind where we make them pay for every light year they travel. Morrison's voice was hard. They think we're going to sit here and wait for them to arrive. They're wrong. Over the next few weeks, human space became a hive of activity. On Earth, factories that made cars started making missiles. On Mars, the shipyards worked around the clock, welding armor plates onto cargo ships and mounting weapons where none were meant to go. On the outer colonies, miners loaded their ships with explosives and practiced ramming runs against asteroids. The changes were remarkable. A passenger liner called the Peaceful Journey was renamed the Fighting Chance and loaded with enough firepower to level a city. A garbage hauler called the Trash Collector became the Silent Death, painted black and fitted with stealth systems. Everywhere, humans were turning tools of peace into weapons of war. But the most important change was in the people themselves. News of the Empire's ultimatum had spread to every human world. Instead of panic, there was anger. Instead of fear, there was determination. Families said goodbye to loved ones who volunteered for the most dangerous missions. Children learned to hide in shelters while their parents prepared to die for their freedom. It's remarkable, Dr. Carter said one day, watching a group of teenagers learning to repair weapon systems. I've never seen anything like it. It's like the whole species just decided to fight. That's exactly what happened, Admiral Morrison replied. The Empire made one mistake. They gave us a choice, submit or die. They thought we'd choose submission. They don't understand that for humans those aren't really different options. What do you mean? A life without freedom isn't really living. It's just existing. So when they said submit or die, what we heard was die slowly or die quickly. And humans always choose to go down fighting. General Sullivan joined them carrying a message pad. I just got word from the outer colonies. They've spotted Empire scout ships at the edge of human space. They're not attacking, just watching. How long until the main fleet arrives? Morrison asked. 3 weeks, maybe less. Morrison nodded. Then it's time to send our message. What message? Admiral Morrison smiled, but it wasn't a pleasant expression. The one Captain Turner would have wanted us to send. We're going to tell them exactly what they're walking into. 2 days later, every Empire scout ship received the same transmission. It was short and simple, broadcast on all frequencies so there could be no mistake. This is Admiral Jake Morrison of the United Human Systems. You came to our space seeking our submission. You destroyed our ship and killed our people. You offered us a choice, kneel or die. We choose neither. Instead, We offer you the same choice your empire offered us. Flee or fall. You have been warned. The new frontier system looked empty except for a few scattered asteroids and the small human colony on the fourth planet. High Commander Vextar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, and watched the sensor readings with satisfaction. The Empire fleet had arrived exactly on schedule. 500 ships spread out in perfect formation, their hulls gleaming in the light of the system's star. "Scan for human ships," Vextar ordered. "I'm detecting approximately 60 vessels," reported his tactical officer. Most appeared to be civilian craft. No major warships visible. Vextar nodded. This was going exactly as he had expected. The humans had barely managed to scrape together enough ships to defend one system, and half of them looked like cargo haulers. It would be over quickly. "Open a channel to the human fleet," he commanded. On the main screen, a face appeared that Vextar had seen in intelligence reports. Admiral Jake Morrison, commander of the human fleet. The man looked older than his 52 years, with gray hair and tired eyes. But there was something else in those eyes that made Vextar uncomfortable. No fear, no desperation, just cold, hard determination. "I am High Commander Vextar of the Zephyrian Empire. You are outnumbered 8-1. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick." Admiral Morrison was quiet for a moment, studying the Empire ships on his own screens. Then he spoke, his voice calm and steady. "High Commander, you came to our space and killed our people. You demanded we kneel before your empire. We told you our answer. Flee or fall." "You cannot be serious," Vextar said, almost laughing. "Look around you. We have 500 ships. You have barely 60. This is not a battle. This is an execution." "Maybe," Morrison replied. "But you're about to learn something about humans. We don't surrender, we don't kneel, and we don't go quietly into the night." The transmission ended. Vextar stared at the blank screen for a moment, then turned to his weapons officer. "Target their flagship. Fire a warning shot across their bow. When they see the power of our weapons, they will come to their senses." The warning shot streaked across space, a beam of pure energy that could have vaporized a small moon. It passed just in front of the human flagship and struck an empty piece of space, creating a brilliant flash of light. The response came immediately, but not from the human flagship. Instead, one of their smaller ships, something that looked like a modified cargo hauler, accelerated straight toward the Empire formation. Its engines were glowing white-hot, pushing the ship far beyond safe speeds. "What is it doing?" Vextar demanded. "It's on a collision course with the Crimson Spear," his tactical officer reported. "The cargo ship is loaded with some kind of explosive device. Massive energy signature. Destroy it." Energy beams from a dozen Empire ships struck the charging cargo vessel. Its shields flared and died. Its hull cracked open, but it kept coming. The ship was breaking apart as it flew, pieces of metal spinning away into space, but its core held together just long enough. The cargo ship struck the Crimson Spear dead center. The explosion lit up space like a small sun. When the light faded, both ships were gone, nothing left but expanding clouds of debris. For a moment, the Empire fleet was silent. In 10,000 years of conquest, no species had ever responded to a warning shot by ramming one of their ships. "Impossible," Vextar whispered. Then the real battle began. The human ships moved like nothing the Empire had ever seen. Instead of forming battle lines like civilized species, they scattered in all directions. Some headed straight for the Empire fleet, engines burning at dangerous levels. Others seemed to disappear entirely, using some kind of stealth system. Captain Lisa Brooks led a squadron of modified fighters in a wild charge through the Empire formation. Her ship, the UHS Retribution, was barely holding together as energy beams flashed all around her. "Target their sensor arrays," she called to her pilots. "Blind them." The fighters swarmed around the massive Empire ships like angry insects too, small and fast for the big guns to track. They fired their weapons at communication dishes and sensor arrays, trying to disrupt the enemy's coordination. Meanwhile, Commander Paul Hayes was working his own kind of magic. From his position aboard a hidden command ship, he was sending electronic attacks into the Empire fleet's computer systems. "I'm in their communication network," he reported to Admiral Morrison, "feeding them false orders, scrambling their targeting systems." The results were immediate. 2 Empire ships turned their weapons on each other, thinking they were firing at human vessels. Another group broke formation and headed in the wrong direction, chasing sensor ghosts that Paul had created. But the most devastating attack came from an unexpected source. Chief Engineer Maria Santos had spent weeks modifying a group of old mining ships, and now they revealed their secret. Using the gravity of the system's gas giant, they accelerated to impossible speeds, far faster than any normal ship could travel. "Gravitational slingshot maneuver complete," Maria reported as her small fleet screamed toward the Empire ships at nearly 10% of light speed. "Impact in 30 seconds. The Empire ships tried to target the incoming missiles, but they were moving too fast. When they struck, the kinetic energy was so enormous that it punched straight through the Empire shields as if they weren't there. 3 of the largest Empire ships exploded in sequence, their reactors unable to contain the massive energy release. Vextar watched in horror as his perfect formation fell apart. Ships were exploding all around him. His communications were jammed. His sensors were showing targets that weren't there while missing the ones that were. And through it all, the humans kept coming. "This is impossible," he shouted. "They're primitives. How are they doing this?" His tactical officer, blood running down his face from a console that had exploded, looked up at him with wide eyes. "Sir, I think they're not fighting to win. They're fighting to hurt us as much as possible." A converted passenger liner, its hull covered in makeshift armor, rammed into the side of the Eternal Dominion. The impact sent both ships spinning, and alarms began blaring throughout the flagship. "Damage report," Vextar demanded. "Hull breach. On decks 12 through 15. We're losing atmosphere, engine efficiency down to 60%. On the screen, Admiral Morrison's face appeared again. This time there was no calm discussion. The human admiral's ship was burning, its bridge filled with smoke, but his eyes still held that terrible determination. "Hi, Commander," Morrison said, his voice rough from smoke. "This is what happens when you threaten our families. This is what happens when you demand we kneel. Welcome to war with humanity." The transmission cut off as another wave of human ships, these ones loaded with nuclear explosives, began their final attack runs. Supreme Overlord Kethavar stood in his throne room, staring at the battle reports from New Frontier. Of 500 ships sent to crush humanity, only 97 had returned. The rest were space debris, destroyed by a species the Empire had dismissed as primitives. "This cannot be accurate," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. War tactician Zelnoth stepped forward, her face pale. "I have verified the reports 3 times, my lord. The humans destroyed over 400 of our ships. They lost only 38 of their own vessels. Impossible. Our ships are superior in every way. Yes, my lord. But the humans did not fight like any species we have encountered. They used their own ships as weapons. They turned cargo vessels into bombs. They sacrificed themselves without hesitation." Intelligence gatherer Mordun consulted his datapad with shaking hands. "My lord, we are receiving reports from across the Empire. 17 colony worlds have declared independence since news of the defeat reached them. The Korthani rebels on Sector 7 have resumed their uprising. The Velthrian resistance movement is attacking our supply lines." Kethvar felt something he had not experienced in 8,000 years of rule. Fear, not for his own life but for the Empire itself. "How many ships do we have left?" "Approximately 8,000 combat vessels, my lord," Zelnoth replied, "but they are spread across 50,000 systems. If we gather them for an assault on human space, we leave the rest of the Empire defenseless. And if we do not, then the humans will come to us." As if summoned by her words, an aide rushed into the throne room. "My lord, urgent message from the border systems. Human ships have been spotted in Empire space. They are attacking our outposts." Kethvar's hands gripped the arms of his throne. "How many ships?" "Unknown, my lord. They appear and disappear without warning. Our patrols cannot track them. The Supreme Overlord turned to look at the great window overlooking his capital city. For 10,000 years, those streets had been filled with the conquered, all serving the Empire in perfect order. Now he could see crowds gathering, whispering among themselves. Word of the defeat was spreading. "Show me the human attacks," he commanded. The throne room's massive display screens lit up with reports from across the Empire. Captain Tony Reed, a young human officer whose name was becoming feared throughout Zephyrian space, had led a strike force deep into Empire territory. They had destroyed the main shipyard at Nexus Station, crippling the Empire's ability to build new vessels. Another group of human ships, led by a converted mining vessel, had attacked 3 different worlds in a single day. They did not try to conquer or occupy. They simply destroyed military installations and left, vanishing into space before reinforcements could arrive. "They are not fighting to take territory," Morden observed. "They are fighting to cripple our ability to threaten them." "It is working," Zelnoth said grimly. "Every attack forces us to spread our remaining ships thinner. Every victory they achieve inspires more rebellions among our subject species." Kethver stood from his throne and walked to the center of the room. "How long before they reach Nexus Prime?" "At their current rate of advance, perhaps 6 months," Zelnoth replied. "But my lord, I do not believe their goal is to reach our capital." "What do you mean?" "They are systematically destroying our ability to project power. Shipyards, supply, depots, communication centers. They are not trying to conquer the Empire. They are trying to make it impossible for us to threaten anyone ever again." The Supreme Overlord was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice filled with something none of his advisors had ever heard before. "Respect. Summon High Commander Vextar, if he still lives." "He does, my lord. His ship was badly damaged, but he survived." When Vextar arrived, he was a changed being. His uniform was torn, his skin marked with scars from the battle. But the biggest change was in his eyes. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something that looked almost like terror. "Tell me about the humans," Kethvar commanded. "They are not like us, my lord," Vextar said quietly. "When we fight to win. When they fight to ensure their enemy can never threaten them again. They are willing to die to achieve this goal." "Are they winning?" "Yes, my lord. And they will continue to win because they understand something we do not, which is that some things are worth dying for. Freedom, the right to live without fear, the safety of their families. They value these things more than their own lives." Kethvar nodded slowly. "And what do we value more than our lives?" Vextar was quiet for a moment. "Nothing, my lord. We fight to live. They fight for reasons to live." Across the Empire, the human offensive continued. Admiral Jake Morrison, his face now known on every Zephyrian world, led his fleet deeper into enemy territory. His ship, the UHS Defiance, had been rebuilt 3 times, but he kept fighting. On the bridge, his communications officer received a message that made him smile for the first time in months. "Sir, we're getting reports from Earth. The colonies have completed construction of 50 new warships. All of them designed with the new specifications." "What specifications?" Morrison asked. "Every ship is designed to ram enemy vessels if necessary. Every ship carries enough explosives to take out targets twice its size. And every ship is crewed by volunteers who understand they might not come home." Morrison nodded. "Send a message to the entire fleet. Tell them the war has changed. We are no longer defending our homes. We are making sure no species will ever have to face what we faced." The message was broadcast not just to human ships, but to every world in the Empire. Rebels on conquered worlds heard it and took heart. Zephyrian commanders heard it and despaired. The Empire that had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years was crumbling, not because humans were stronger, but because they had shown the galaxy something it had forgotten. That freedom was worth fighting for. That some things mattered more than survival, and in his throne room on Nexus Prime, Supreme Overlord Kethvar made a decision that would have been unthinkable just months before. He composed a message to Admiral Morrison, offering to discuss terms for peace. The humans had won not through superior technology or numbers, but through something the Empire had never encountered. They had won because they refused to lose, and, in refusing to lose, they had changed the galaxy forever.